Pildat called on the Election Commission of Pakistan to conduct a thorough investigation into delays in result compilation and transmission. The report released on Wednesday suggests two approaches to address election controversies. The report, based on independent analysis and a cross-sectional questionnaire, identified 6 key issues impacting the elections. In a recent report on the 2024 general elections, the Pakistan Institute of Legislative Development and Transparency expressed concern over a decline in fairness compared to previous elections. Pildat called on the Election Commission of Pakistan to conduct a thorough investigation into delays in result compilation and transmission.
Pre-poll manipulation of results had been one of the most popular ways to manipulate Pakistani elections for the last many elections since after 1977. In 1977, it was the polling day rigging which had been charged against the government of that time. And because of the unsuccessful nature of that rigging and because of the tragic result coming out of that, where Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's government was ultimately toppled after widespread riots in the country. So the people came to the conclusion that election day rigging is too risky and it is too dangerous, and it may not be possible to depend on that. So therefore, the pre-poll rigging was devised, and through this, many things were done before the election which could change the level playing field. And therefore, following the same pattern, in 2024, we have seen that a set of leaders who were favorite, they were allowed to claim their innocence from the courts, and some of the leaders who were not so favorite, they were charged in the courts, and prosecution was done very hurriedly, and even late night court proceedings were continued in the prison. So these are some of the very obvious things which point in the direction for manipulation of elections. These were done in preparation for the election before the polling day. We have seen that the caretaker Prime Minister was a founder member of a political party, Balochistan Awami Party. He was elected as senator, and he resigned from the party and he resigned from senatorship only after he became caretaker Prime Minister. The caretaker Interior Minister continued to be a member of BAP, Balochistan Awami Party, and he continued to be a senator until he decided himself to resign just before the election date. So, and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa caretaker government was later on removed, but for a good more than 50% of the time they continued, and they were nominated members from various political parties. So that shows very clearly that the caretaker government was a partisan government in the provinces and in the center. And in addition to all those things we just narrated, so it was very clear that pre-poll phase of the election was such which had pretty much decided which party is going to lose, which party is going to win.
The report released on Wednesday suggests two approaches to address election controversies: resolving disputes case by case through election tribunals or forming a commission of inquiry similar to the one in 2013.
Suspension of internet services and the cellular phone services had a major impact on the people's participation in the elections. Many people just look for their polling station on the day of the poll, and they just use the 8300 service of the Election Commission to find out what is their polling station and where is it located. Because of the suspension of cellular phone and suspension of internet, they could not do that. So many of the people, either they wasted a lot of time or they lost heart and they went back without casting vote. And as we know that the candidates and political parties also mobilize their voters by using cell phones. They have become a major contributor in the communication of the political parties. So when they were unexpectedly, although they were not entirely unexpected, but still so people depend on them a lot. When they were suspended, political parties and candidates could not reach out to their supporters and voters to mobilize them to come out to vote. the part which dealt with the transmission of result from polling station to returning officer, that was dependent on internet. And I think Election Commission was not right when they claimed that they will not depend on internet and they will have a standby system of their own to communicate the result from polling station to returning officer. Because later on, when they tried to explain the delay, they said the delay was because the internet was not working and the polling station results could not be transmitted to returning officer in time. But even that explanation is a bit flawed. They should have made alternative arrangements. So they should have made arrangement for proper transportation and security of presiding officers to go to the returning officer. So this suspension of services, whether it was internet or whether it was cell phones, this has impacted in a big way the political parties and candidates. And I may also mention that, look, because PTI was the party which had its candidates having multiple election symbols. So they were depending on internet much more than other political parties to convey to their supporters what was the election symbol of their candidates. And they could have reminded their supporters that they should vote for this particular candidate who has this election symbol. So because the internet was down, probably a last minute reminder by that party was not possible. So these are the various ways in which I think the suspension of these services played out in a very negative way in the participation of election.
Pildat scored the 2024 elections at 49%, below the 50% threshold and lower than the past two elections. The institute urged the ECP to investigate delays in result transmission and explain the lack of contingency planning for EMS issues.
We have not done a thorough investigation. Only a thorough investigation and scrutiny can ascertain that what was the extent of manipulating these forms. But whatever we have seen and the delay which we have seen happening has created very strong doubts. And that is what we are saying in our report as well, that we consider it a very doubtful situation in which forms were probably manipulated. And how many of them were manipulated, we have not yet counted. That can only be done by probably election tribunals or an inquiry commission. So that is yet to be decided, the extent of manipulation, but apparently there are very clear signs that people are doubtful about the authenticity or integrity of these forms.
It also recommended election tribunals resolve disputes on a case-by-case basis and emphasized the need for increased tribunal numbers to meet the 180-day legal deadline for deciding election petitions. The report concludes by stressing the importance of transparency and accountability to address systemic issues and safeguard future electoral processes.
A lot of doubts were created after the delay of announcing the provisional results. And after so many people claimed that they have found discrepancies in Form 45 and Form 47, people were now waiting for this 14 days deadline within which the Election Commission by law was required to upload Form 45 and the final result, which is contained in Form 48, and then in Form 49 and also Form 46. So Form 48 was the most important in all this because Form 48 provides election polling station-wise number of votes secured by each candidate. And that could be immediately compared with Form 45. So because that scrutiny was not possible until these forms were uploaded, so the delay in uploading or publishing these forms further reinforced the doubts which people had seen emerging after the delay in provisional results. So it further reinforced the people doubts which they had about the election results. So in that sense, that delay was very important, and it played very negatively upon the integrity of election and upon the integrity of the election commission itself.